Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Coin of World. In today's episode we are diving deep into the story behind the 1961 United States 1 cent coin, the legendary penny bearing the motto "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1961. This coin is a symbol of American history, culture, and coinage tradition, and by the end of this journey you will understand why this simple copper coin has remained one of the most studied, collected, and admired pieces in American full detailed history of the 1961 "In God We Trust, Liberty" Lincoln cent. The 1961 Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it is a portal to American ideals, tradition, and the heritage of coin production in the modern era, issued during a time of post-war prosperity, Cold War tension, space race competition, and the civil rights movement. This coin reflects both the political landscape and technological evolution of its time. When we look at this penny, we see the face of Abraham Lincoln engraved by Victor David Brenner, a design introduced in 1909 to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birth anniversary. It was the first time a real person's portrait was used on a circulating United States coin, and it represented a monumental shift from classical allegorical figures to honoring real American leaders. Victor David Brenner was commissioned by President Theodore Roosevelt, and he crafted the portrait based on a live photograph and a bronze plaque. The reverse initially featured two wheat ears framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, but in 1959, to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial, a neoclassical monument completed in 1922 and designed by Henry Bacon. This change in design was led by chief engraver Frank Gasparro, whose initials can be found on the coin, though subtly hidden compared to the prominent VDB on the 1909 original. The coin's inscriptions remain as powerful as ever. "In God We Trust," adopted during the Civil War and made mandatory on coins in 1956 under President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Liberty standing tall on the left of Lincoln, and the date 1961 on the right, with no mint mark if struck in Philadelphia, and AD below the date for coins struck in Denver. The 1961 cent is composed primarily of copper, 95%, with the remaining 5% being tin and zinc, a composition that had been consistent since 1864, with exceptions like the 1943 steel cent. In 1961, the U.S. Mint produced billions of these coins to meet the demands of a booming post-war economy that was seeing new highways, rising suburban neighborhoods expanding, and consumer culture taking root. Over 753 million pennies were struck in Philadelphia, while more than 1.7 Denver, making it one of the highest mintage years in U.S. coin history. Despite the high mintage, collectors still seek high-grade examples, especially those graded. Numismatists and historians often examine these coins for doubling die varieties, repunched mint marks, and other errors which can significantly increase a coin's value. In 1961, there were a few minor doubling examples and machine doubling errors, but no major double die varieties, making pristine condition and strike quality the main value determinants. The economic backdrop of the early 60s was also key to understanding this coin's context. The United States was in a transitional period with President John F. Kennedy taking office in January 1961. His vision for a new frontier included a space program, educational reform, and civil rights. Progress. The country was preparing to send a man to the moon, and citizens were beginning to experience rapid cultural and social change, yet the Lincoln cent remained a familiar part of daily life, used for everything from candy to newspapers. A humble reminder of Lincoln's legacy in a time of national evolution. Public trust in the motto "In God We Trust" also carried significant cultural weight as Americans turned to faith during the height of Cold War fears. The inclusion of liberty and Lincoln's face made the coin a trifecta of national values: freedom, faith, and leadership. The Lincoln Memorial reverse is often overlooked, but in the center between the columns, if you look closely, you will find the statue of Abraham Lincoln, echoing the real-life monument on the National Mall. This detail sets it apart from many other coin designs and adds depth to its historical significance. Collectors often wonder about the coin's lifespan. How long can a penny remain in circulation? Studies show that copper cents like those from 1961 can circulate for 30 to 50 years or more, though most are removed by collectors or the public due to their copper content, which became more valuable than the face value by the 1980s, especially after the composition changed to mostly zinc in 1982. So the 1961 Lincoln cent is a product of artistry, symbolism, industry, and the times it was born into, from the artist's original design choices to the machinery and processes of the U.S. Mint. The coin is a reflection of changing America, yet it holds tightly to timeless values. It has passed through the hands of millions. From children saving for candy to veterans paying bus fare to shopkeepers counting change. It's been a witness to countless human stories, all while carrying the image of a man who helped preserve the Union and the words "In God We Trust," liberty, and 1961, which root it firmly in American identity. Certainly here is the continued extended script for your 2-hour professional documentary on the 1961 "In God We Trust," liberty, Lincoln cent. Written in a single flow, line-free format and in straightforward English. The journey of the 1961 Lincoln cent begins long before the coin was ever struck. To understand its true value and importance, we must explore the roots of the Lincoln cent itself. The decision to feature Abraham Lincoln on the penny in 1909 was a turning point in American coinage. Up until then, no real person had appeared on circulating coins because of the belief that the Republic should avoid the glorification of individuals in the manner of kings and emperors. But the centennial of Lincoln's birth changed that attitude. The people admired Lincoln not as a ruler but as a symbol of liberty, humility, and leadership. Victor David Brenner, an immigrant from Lithuania who had trained as an engraver, was commissioned to produce the portrait based on a live photograph by Matthew Brady, and the resulting design has become one of the longest-running coin portraits in world history. Fast forward to 1961, the United States Mint had fully transitioned from the wheat reverse to the Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959. This was no minor shift. It represented a new national focus on unity, justice, and civil values. The Lincoln Memorial was not just a building, it was a shrine for peace and civil rights. It had already become a place where thousands gathered for protests, vigils, and ceremonies. The image of Lincoln seated between the columns became symbolic of silent strength and wise governance, and this was now placed on every cent in American pockets. In the 1961 version of the cent, the coin measures 19 millimeters in diameter, weighs about 3.11 grams, and consists of bronze, which is a copper alloy, as copper prices fluctuated in the coming decades. This composition would become more valuable than the coin's face value, adding another layer of interest for collectors and metal investors. In the mints, the process of producing billions of coins involved giant presses feeding planches into dies struck under immense pressure. The dies used to create the coins had to be replaced regularly due to wear and tear, and each new die had slight differences, causing minor varieties. This is why coin collectors often search for specific die varieties in the 1961 cent, looking for repunched mint marks, RPM's slight doubling, or unusual features. The Denver Mint used a D-mint mark, and the mint mark was still being punched by hand onto each working die, making such varieties more common than in later decades. The proof coins of 1961 were struck in Philadelphia, using special dies and polished blanks to create a high shine, mirror-like finish and frosted details. These coins were never released for circulation and were sold only to collectors, often in proof sets. Today, these coins in high grade command premium prices and are carefully graded by professional agencies under bright lights, and historically the early 1960s were a time of significant change and tension. The Cold War was in full swing. The Bay of Pigs invasion occurred in 1961, and the Berlin Wall would soon rise. The country was experiencing economic growth but also civil unrest. Martin Luther King Jr. was rising as a leader, and the seeds of the civil rights movement were taking firm root. In this climate, the Lincoln cent carried more than monetary value. It carried a reminder of unity and leadership. It passed from hand to hand as the country struggled with its identity and future challenges. Children would use the penny in school lunches, jukeboxes, arcade games, and bubble gum machines. Adults used it in toll booths, parking meters, and charity boxes. The coin traveled across cities, towns, farmlands, and military bases, and in doing so it became a quiet witness to a transformative period. In U.S. history, historians and numismatists often study the wear patterns on these coins to understand circulation habits. Coins with full details on Lincoln's hair or the steps of the Lincoln Memorial are considered better struck and more valuable. Many 1961 cents have lost their luster or become dark from oxidation, but copper collectors appreciate even these for their natural patina and aging characteristics. In educational institutions, numismatics began to be introduced as a method of learning history and economics, and the 1961 penny served as a perfect case study to explore Lincoln's impact, the U.S. Mint's evolution, and broader economic principles. Teachers would ask students to bring coins from home and identify the year mint mark, and designed to spark conversations about national events and historical timelines. This engagement led many young Americans to begin coin collecting as a hobby that would last a lifetime. Over time, collectors created folders, albums, and specialized holders to preserve 1961 cents in various conditions. Business strikes, proofs, errors, and high-grade examples all found their places in American collections. The Red Book and other catalogs listed varieties, prices, and mintages annually. Contributing to the cultural memory and value of these coins, television shows, books, and museums dedicated to Lincoln often featured the Lincoln cent as a physical connection to his enduring legacy. While the coin was common in number, its symbolic weight grew heavier with every generation. Internationally, the Lincoln cent, including the 1961 issue, was often used in trade exchanges, educational gifts, and goodwill programs. The U.S. Mint even sent sets of coins to foreign dignitaries and allies, promoting American ideals and artistry around the globe. People in countries from Europe to Asia received American coins in aid packages, tourism, or military presents, and the image of Lincoln, along with the motto "In God We Trust," became a worldwide representation of American democracy and integrity.